And I believe, that the problem in our system is it's based on that you will never get satisfied. So if you have something, you should have more. Most companies usually try to, after they have established, they try to capture the values they created. Now they created a business and it works, and now they want to make it more efficient. So it should be always generate more money and increase. And they lose the sight on innovation. And innovation is always something in the future. For example, in my company, we always have generate new ideas and work on new services, and they don't work, so we just throw them into the trash. Not work. But we do this every week, every month, we do this again and again and again. So we work through.
Hello to everyone who is watching us right now. We are here with Akin Duyaar, who is a coach and a lecturer specializing in radical innovation and creative leadership. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
First, can you give us a definition of leadership that is best aligned with the values and expectations of Gen Zs?
Yeah, this is, I think everyone tries to find a good answer for this. In my opinion, leadership for Gen Z should be more about transparency, about collaboration, and purpose-driven action. So it is different from other generations. It should be more authentic and align with their values, that the organization is aligning with their values instead that the organization is forcing their own values to align with them.
But how can leaders promote collaboration in a way that aligns with Gen Z's preference for open and inclusive communication?
I mean, the best way is to build empathy. That's, I think, what most leaders lack in traditional companies is they don't have empathy with the younger generations, and they don't give them the responsibility. They want them to do something. So I would say, you need to work with Gen Z. You need to empower them, to give them ownership about the projects while maintaining strong mentorship. You need, you give them the responsibility, but you should be mentoring them during the time.
I can quote you this data which I read before this interview. According to the website HR Forecast, only 24% of Gen Zs are focused on higher pay. So how should leadership redefine success to better resonate with the generation's values?
Yes, success is, I would say, is a difficult question because, other generations had always the demand for, like my generations wanted to have career success. Millennials wanted to have career success, but more flexibility in working and having free time for personal development. Whereas I think Gen Z will look for more a purpose-driven collective success and being, generating something which is sustainable for the world. The more sustainable, the more it supports better living, and that could be a measure for a success, that you're really realizing these kind of steps.
So you mentioned sustainability, and I also can say that Gen Zs have growing preferences for sustainable business models. But what does this mean for traditional companies?
I mean, the thing is that sustainability is not only now a buzzword or just used for marketing. I see that Gen Z is expecting and demands accountability, that the companies are really accountable. So it's not just something optional. Like sustainability is something really need to be a part of it. And it needs to be aligned with the core values of the company, that they really stand behind it. As long as that is not given, then you cannot really develop something really sustainable. Before, maybe my generation maybe was happy when they saw a logo on it and say like fair trade, So that was like, you saw, okay, that's wonderful. But 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 that generation wants them to be accountable for what they're doing, you know.
So, how can design thinking redefine traditional corporate structures to make them more appealing and maybe relevant to younger generations?
Design thinking has a certain approach. We always embrace the idea of uncertainty. We never insist on having a solution. We mostly try to first understand the problem. And I think that the biggest problem in nowadays businesses is that the world is much too complex to know that someone knows the solution. So we would say, like design thinkers, we always say, like, we want to understand first the problem, and then we want to get a user perspective and a really user perspective, and then do everything what we do in our company and our organization or product or services, design that from that perspective, that user perspective, design everything, you know. So going back from that perspective, you go into your organization, you go into employing people, you go into leadership, you go into how you design product, how you do advertising. So you do everything from that user perspective you gain, and you allow yourself to constantly, under certain time frames, to iterate this and optimize this, what you have found out, because the world is very fast now. We have hyper competition, everything is going faster and faster, and you cannot rely on something which you thought this was valid today, but in a year it's maybe obsolete already. So you need to really always really recheck what you have found out. But it's really important to get the right user perspective or the customer perspective.
Let's take a look at the capitalism perception of our generation and how Gen Zs can impact the global economy with their consumption habits that lead to reduction in traditional industries reliant on ownership.
In the capitalist system, things are driven like you have money, you spend, and you consume, so you can afford things, which should give you a certain way of feeling better or give you more self-worth or self-value, and you're demanding this kind of products. And the more you have, the more you want. And I think that's still there, that Gen Zs are also consuming in that similar ways. They're demanding more for what they're consuming. They're asking more what is behind that. Not all of them, of course, but there is still a stronger demand for what is it what I'm getting. And I believe, that the problem in our system is it's based on that you will never get satisfied. So if you have something, you should have more. So it's also, your consumption should grow. If you cannot, you have to take a loan. So it goes more and more and more. But I think there should be a question is, when is enough? And in that moment, I believe when you see how Gen Z is working, their work attitude, asking for sustainability, saving the planet for environmental friendly. If you want to get into that balance, consumption needs to stop somewhere and need to be recyclable. You need to find alternatives. And there is a moment where you need to really think about what kind of system we need as a capitalistic economic system we need that is in balance with our environment and the world. And that's where I think where Gen Z is coming in with its values. And I hope when they are having a say, more academics, more leadership is just going up, and they haven't given up their values, that they will try to create this, And you see that this happening. For example, New Zealand is trying new ways of things. And so it's happening in different part of the world. It's beginning, and I hope it just increases with them.
But will this be like a permanent change, or they will also switch the narrative at some point?
Well, that's a future perspective. I mean, we can say yes, they can do, or yes, they can't, as the future is still uncertain. And I believe hope is something what humanity needs, to change. If you know hope, you don't change. If you give up hope, everything is over. So I believe as long as we can keep hope and keep hope in a generation that was seen is now really criticized a lot because their values clash a lot with the previous generations. But when you look deeper, you see there is something right, I would say like overworking isn't something healthy, So people expect you to overwork. And if you work a lot more, and you like work like 12 hours a day, and your boss thinks, "No, this is a great employee," then this is wrong. So, and Gen Zs are blamed for this, not doing this and not wanting this. So I believe that the moment when there's a shift in these things, then these things, what you think, they can change the narrative then, because they need to create a world that fits to them. So I hope that the generation will create a world where they can really live in peace, with inner and outer peace, and be happy in the world where they work and live in, instead of being trying to fulfill what the older generations want from them.
We are still on the topic of Gen Z's preferences. They definitely prefer digital goods and services over physical ones. So, in your opinion, would that redefine traditional concepts of value and wealth in our economy?
It has already done. It has already done a lot. We are living in a world now where soft materials are more valuable than hard. When you think about Airbnb is just an app, but is more valuable than the biggest hotel chain in the world, which is owning the hotels and the land. And you see this everywhere. That there is a big shift from going from hardware to the software, and a lot of companies have really big troubles with that. Japan depending on more hardware, and Germany also similar. Industries, everything machine based driven, and then you see someone is just developing an crypto app, and that has billions of value. So it's just really changing a lot. It has already changed.
But in a world where everything is global, what role do multicultural competencies play in fostering innovation and creativity?
If you're working internationally, you have to think about so many different cultures, and you cannot address different cultures without having that perspective in your company. So you need to think about multicultural competences. You need to understand different kind of cultures in order to become global, and even think about just an example of Germany. Germany has 80 million people living there, and 25% have an immigration background. It means that that country, that are 21 million people, that is 3.5 times bigger than Bulgaria now. So from that perspective, you have a multicultural company, not a company, multicultural country in Germany already. So you need to think about multicultural competences, because they are your clients, and if you don't have that perspective, you will always address only a part of a population.
So let's take a look at the Gen Z's workforce. We know they prefer flexibility, remote work. So, how should companies redesign their workplaces for this generation?
Well, I would give Gen Z the task to design their own workplace. Instead of trying to give them a workplace, thinking what they want, I would ask them, design your workplace, but be accountable for what you're doing and for delivering, and because we know that flexibility, staying home, and this hybrid work models, everything is aligning with their expectations to work, and on the other hand, there is something also to be delivered. So you want something, and you see that many companies are changing this, like Tesla or Amazon, bringing people back to the buildings in the companies, because they see that there is some, maybe they see a risk of, and they always see that productivity is going down, in this kind of thing. So they want maybe the control, and the thing control in the room is better. So I would just really I would make a task force with the Gen Z team and say, like, design your workplace, and here are the things you need to deliver.
So they can reach like the perfect work-life balance.
I hope so, and as long as they are also take the responsibility for what they have to do. That's what you usually want. You just don't want to give them everything without demanding something. So you need to also demand something. But maybe they will find a better way for them to deliver this instead of you thinking this is what they want and just give them this. There's this funny thing now when it started with the millennials that everywhere you had in this kind of companies fruit baskets or table tennis, and no one is using that anymore. But in the beginning, everyone thought it's cool, but it has no value, right? Anymore, no one is playing table tennis somewhere. It's loud. And I'm here in a huge modern co-working space, and they had this too. They took that out. They thought it's fantastic, but no one wants that. So, which means, if you think that what people want, you end up like this. But if you give them the task to and guide them, and therefore design thinking perfect, for kind of solving this kind of problems. You can do every time a design thinking workshop and intervention to really find what is the right solution for this kind of problem.
Let's finish with the topic of abductive thinking. What ways it empowers organizations to explore unconventional solutions and outpace their competitors?
Right, most companies usually try to, after they have established, they try to capture the values they created. They created a business and it works, and now they want to make it more efficient. So it should be always generate more money and increase, and they lose the sight on innovation. And innovation is always something in the future. So that is the kind of thinking of what could be. And every time when you think what could be, you need to work on that. So abductive thinking is a way to bring continuous way of thinking of innovation and generating ideas and finding new innovations, instead of just only trying to capture what you've created. And it's every time when someone comes up with an idea and someone says, this is impossible, this is where abductive thinking starts and where you should really go for it to find it instead of saying it is impossible. And most of the ideas in the world which turned out to be big innovations and brought progress to mankind, everyone thought they were impossible when they first were raised. So this is abductive thinking. And to train this and bring this into an organization that can really generate that competitive advantage, because then you find something where others maybe were still sleeping, and trying to work. So you have invented something already for your next 10 years in the future ideas, where the others were still trying to capture what they have today.
Okay, so let's summarize all of that information. Looking ahead, how can abductive thinking and creative problem solving reshape the way businesses define success in like the next decade?
It depends on how many innovations you can create. I would say that's something you can measure. For example, in my company, we always generate new ideas and work on new services, and they don't work, so we just throw them into the trash. Not work, not work, not work. But we do this every week, every month, we do this again and again and again. So we work through. And then suddenly we just generate out of these things something with the market demands. Oh, that's a service that people want, or that's a service maybe that's needed in 2 years. So let's work on that. And then we bring out this kind of services, already knowing that there will be a demand for this. So I think like the number of inventions you bring to the market, that is a measure how you can measure how good you are with abductive thinking.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Duyar, for this interview.
Yeah, thank you very much too.